I'm JNAPS MMA. Welcome back to another video. I'm ranking every single pay-per-view of this year, man. If you haven't seen my last video, I did a tier list of all the Fight Night cards. Yeah, a lot of Fight Night, a lot of Fight Night cards this year were trash. But go watch that video. Pretty fun. I know it's a little long, but go watch it. If you're bored, ain't got nothing to watch, go watch it. Support your boy. But yeah, I'm ranking every single pay-per-view of this year, dude. A lot of disappointing cards this year, and we're gonna start off with the worst one of this year, and it has to be UFC 302, man. Literally, UFC 302 was the worst card of this year. The only good fights were Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier, and the performance bonus of the night that was given to Kevin Holland after he almost broke Michael Vacancek's arm. Strickland versus Costa was the most boringest fight ever. And Nico Price and Alex Morano were on the main card. The only other finish on this card was Jalton Almeida versus Alexander Romanov. Almeida getting a submission against another Mobilio Beast heavyweight. Everything else was a decision. This card was horrible. And yeah, this card was just super trash. Basically Makhachev and Poirier carrying the card. On to the next card. At 13, we have UFC 297, the first pay-per-view of this year. The only good fights on here were literally Sean Strickland versus Duplessis. Really close fight. Can't wait to see it next year in 2025. You had a co-main WMMA. That card was that fight was trash as well. I'm not gonna lie to you. Only other good fight on here was Neil Magny fraud checking Mike Malott, though. He fraud checked Mike Malott. Everything else on here was literally a decision. You had Gillian Roberts getting a KO over our baby girl on Polyana Viviana, who has been trash this year, to be honest with you. And then there was some submissions in the beginning of the card that nobody cares about. But yeah, this card was dog water, super dog water. It was between 302 and this one for the number 14 spot. But yeah, I just gave it to 302 because it was just dog water. It was just more dog water. There was like more decisions. At least this one had a couple more submissions in the prelims. On to the next card. At 12, we have UFC 309. John Jones versus Stipe Miocic. The only good fights on this card were John Jones versus Stipe Miocic, and that was basically because John Jones was like murdering a 42-year-old fireman who hasn't fought in 4 years. We wanted to see Tom Aspinall, but whatever. We'll get it next year, hopefully. Please, Dino. Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. A crazy fifth round. Oliveira was literally dominating the entire rounds, all 4 rounds until that last round. That was crazy. You had Mauricio Rufy against James Lyontop, which was an okay fight. Rufy should have knocked that guy out, or he was just styling too much. I don't know. He's still growing though. Marcin Tybura fraud checking Jonathan Denise. These heavyweight prospects are getting fraud checked left and right. And he had Oban Elliott and Raheem Bahimas getting knockouts. That's pretty much it. 309, just trash. I said it in my 309 rank video. My 309 rant video. I was just like, bro, this card is dog water. And it still turned out to be dog water. Rank 12. On to the next one. At 11, we have UFC 307, Alex Pereira versus Killer Rountree. I remember in my prediction video saying that this card was going to be dog water no matter what. It was literally Pereira and Roundtree saving the card, and it really was. That was such a good fight. Roundtree stealing 2 rounds, and then Pereira, he started cooking and eventually knocked him out in the 4th round. Bautista robbing Jose Aldo was horrifying to see. You had the co-main event in Raquel Pennington versus Juliana Pena. Another robbery. I thought Raquel Pennington won the fight. Holland broke a rib or something against Elite. You had Kayla Harrison putting up a stinker fest against Ketlin Vieira. And the only good other fight on here was Jaquan Buckley against Wonder Boy. Buckley getting the knockout against Wonder Boy. That, you know, nobody really knocks out Wonder Boy like that. But this card did not deliver. It was never going to deliver. This was just, you know, most of the cards this year that Alex Pereira was on was just him saving the UFC from complete disaster. And I really have to thank Alex Pereira because, dude, if it wasn't for him, we'd be screwed. But yeah, on to the next one. At number 10, we have UFC 301, Alessandro Pantoja versus Steve Erceg. I actually had this card ranked higher, and I was making this video preparing myself. I was like, bro, this card is okay. It's not good. You know, it's good, but it's not really good. It's okay. You had Aldo's return. You had a really close fight in Erceg against Pantoja. I thought Erceg won, but whatever. Pantoja's been an amazing champion. I can't front. You had Victor Petrino fraud checking. You had Anthony Lionheart Smith fraud checking Victor Petrino. Victor Petrino's trash after getting knocked out by Dustin Jacoby. He needs work. You also had Collier Bahalio knocking out Paul Craig. You had Michelle Pereira getting a submission win against Iho Batorie. Brito like destroying the leg of Jack Shore. And that was pretty much it. And you had Marisa Rufi. Oh, you had Marisa Rufi's debut against Jamie Malarkey. And it was a pretty good debut for, Marisa Rufi. You know, fighting the draw on top. They're one of the best gyms right now. And yeah, this card just wasn't, it was okay. It wasn't like super good. It was okay. But let's go on to the next card. At 9, we have UFC 303, Alex Pereira versus Jiri Prochazka. There was a lot of good finishes, a lot of good fights on this card. You had Pereira getting that head kick KO in the second round against Jiri Prochazka. That was super crazy. I literally screamed in my chair and jumped out of it. You had Diego Lopez. You had Danny Gay stepping in on like 4 hours notice to fight Diego Lopez. Diego Lopez doing like 3 weight cuts. Dogs. That was just, they were savages for that. They didn't need to do that, but they were savages for that. Saving the card as well. You had Delite destroying Anthony Lionheart Smith. That was just whatever. That was horrifying to see. Ian Gary putting up a stinker fest against Michael Venom Page. Whatever. Ian Gary has aura now after the Shavkat Rakhmonov fight that we're going to talk about later. Joe Pyfer knocking out Marc-Andre Barat. That was crazy to see. Gene Silva knocking out Charles Jourdain was crazy. Gene Silva in his like second fight in the UFC. And you had Peyton Talbot getting that 19-second knockout against Giannis Gamori. Overall, this was just, it was a mediocre card. You even had Michelle Waterson getting like a video tribute retirement or whatever, dude. But this card was just not good. A lot of good finishes though. A lot of good finishes, a lot of good fights, fun fights to see. But yeah, I'd rank it at 9. 303 at 9. At the 8th spot, we have the Sphere. UFC 306. The Sphere had like 10 fights only. And for it, I'm gonna be honest with you. The reason why the Sphere's at 8 was because it was something like Ryzen or Pride that the UFC has never done before, that you had all this crazy like an animation and graphics and stuff that made the card really good, and you had really fun fights on here for such a short amount of fights. Joshua Van against Edgar Chairez was crazy. You had Manuel Torres getting knocked out nasty by Ignacio Bahamondes. You had Daman and Irene Aldana, and Irene Aldana's face was cut like in half, like her face was falling off. In the main card, you had Ronaldo Rodriguez and Ode Osborne putting up a show. At least you had probably one of the fight of the year, one of them at least. Daniel Zellhuber versus Esteban Rudovic. That fight was crazy. I remember just like seeing those guys scrap, and it was like wonderful to see. You had Diego Lopez making the statement on Brian Ortega, and then after that, the co-main and main just stunk up the card. Literally, if it wasn't for the co-main and main stinking up the card, this card would be a little bit higher. But Merab just grappling all 5 rounds, and you know, Valentina doing the same thing, it kind of just made the card die. Like, it killed the momentum of the card that it had. Like, the card had so much momentum going into the co-main and main, and yeah, they really just killed the card like that. But overall, still a pretty decent card. It wasn't bad, it was just decent. Co-main and main failed us. Ranked set at the 7th spot is UFC 298, Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilia Topuria. You had this card was good. Obviously seeing you had Ilia Topuria sleeping a featherweight Gordon Volkanovski, which is crazy. I remember like going nuts after seeing that. You had Robert Whittaker versus Paulo Costa. Obviously, I didn't put him up here because it was, it was a fun. It was like, after looking back at it, it was an okay fight. Robert took control, and Paulo Costa hasn't had a good win in a while. He's been falling off a bit. But, Robert, he won that fight. What was impressing was Merab out wrestling Henry Cejudo pretty bad. All 3 rounds. He even carried Henry Cejudo all the way to his corner. It was crazy. That crazy fight. You had Fluffy Hernandez submitting Roman Kopylov. That was crazy to see as well. Everything else on the card, yeah, you had a couple knockouts and stuff, but the card in general wasn't really that good. I could have rated this lower, but honestly, like Volkanovski and Topuria, and it was just such a good, like that right there carried this card a lot. It really did. But shout outs to shout outs to Merab and Anthony and Fluffy Hernandez for doing their thing out there, dude. They really did their thing, and put an emphasis on like the years that they had, the year that they had. Like Fluffy Hernandez has had a crazy year, and Merab, after this fight, obviously 306, and him getting the belt. So they had a crazy year. They made a statement in these fights, and yeah, Fluffy Hernandez getting his first main event, and Merab getting a belt. Yeah. On to the next card. At the number 6 spot, we have UFC 304. UFC 304. Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad. Tom Aspinall versus Blades. This card could have been ranked higher, but the UFC decided to make this in this card USA time, and instead of like Europe time, and the crowd was literally asleep in like the middle of the card. Like you had Mick Parkins getting a KO, then you had Sam Patterson and Modestas Bastauskas getting some crazy wins. But then when you got to the prelims, it kind of was all decisions, and it was a sleeper fest. You got to the main card, and the reason why it was good was, first of all, Arnold Allen and Giga Chikadze. I didn't put that on there, but that was such a good fight. Really close fight, really technical fight. Arnold Allen did his thing out there. Greggy Rodriguez fraud checking Chris Leroy Duncan, or just Chris Leroy Duncan's not ready yet. But Paddy Pimblett sparked this crowd up. And this crowd went crazy when Patty got the submission win against King Green. That sparked it up. Then you had Tom Aspinall getting the knockout win against Curtis Blades. That was crazy. And then you had Bilal Muhammad like literally stomping Leon Edwards' head onto the canvas onto his bald spot, getting the belt, getting it done. That right there was crazy. And this card could have been ranked a little bit higher if the crowd wasn't dead and maybe the middle of the prelims had a couple more finishes. But it was a good card. In general, like us USA watchers, that was such a good card. I like this card a lot. I wish I could have ranked it a little bit higher if there was a little bit more finishes. And yeah. But I think at 6 is a pretty good spot because the rest of the other cards, I think they beat them out. And on to the next one, we have UFC 305. Dricus Du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya. This card, I had it ranked lower when I was making this video. And honestly, dude, this card, Dricus Du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya is like a contender for fight of the year. I was literally at the edge of my chair. The way that they scrapped, the way that Du Plessis submitted this man in the 4th round, when it looked like we've seen like one of the best Israel Adesanyas. That Israel that we saw that day was crazy. He was crazy technical, and he was hitting Du Plessis with some good shots too. Co-main event: Kai Kara France versus Steve Erceg. Kai Kara France knocking out Steve Erceg in the 1st round was crazy, and I predicted Erceg to win. Kara France made a name and he made a statement for himself that day. Dan Hooker versus Gamrot. Dan Hooker was, he's back, baby, and crazy fight against Gamrot. Good post-fight interview. Obviously, we're not about to talk about Tai Tuivasa and Jairzinho Rosenstrike. What I do say is that one of the judges did have Tai Tuivasa winning. I don't know how. We are gonna talk about how Carlos Prates has made a name for himself this year and is probably the rookie of the year in the MMA. He's the newcomer of the year, dude. This guy, 4 wins, dude, against good prospects. He's literally put himself in the welterweight division. He's literally 2 fights away from the belt. And that win against Jing Liang, being the first guy to finish Jing Liang was crazy. The rest of the card was just a little sleeper fest, but just the main event itself was so good. I had to put it at 5. Some of the prelims are okay. You had Walter Walker and Junior Tafa getting into a scuffle. But yeah, you had Herbert Burns giving up at the end. It was just crazy. But yeah, this card was really good. The main card itself is the reason why it's ranked 5. And honestly, I don't know if the next Australian card and New Zealand card is gonna be this good. But we'll see, man. On to the next one, though. On to the next card. We have the last pay-per-view of this year at 4. UFC 310. I remember saying that in my recap video that this card was pretty trash, but compared to all the other ones, the reason why it's at 4, the prelims. I didn't put any prelims fights on the screens, but dude, the best prelims in the in any pay-per-view this year. You had Kenny Usuchuku getting a knockout, which was expected. You had Chase Hooper getting a submission, which was expected. You had Michael Chiesa getting a submission, which was expected. I predicted, some of these obviously to happen, but for them to just happen and for it to have so many finishes on this card, it was still pretty cool to see. Even Eric Andrews knocking out Chris Weidman, that was pretty cool. Ground and pound TKO. Brian Battle versus Randy Brown was a little bit of a stinkfest, but then you have Mazar Evilov versus Aljamain Sterling, probably the best grappling matchup of this year. Vicente Luque coming back and beating Themba Gorimbo. Dominic Reyes and Anthony Lionheart Smith. We're not gonna talk about that. That's pretty sad. But Doo Ho Choi, I didn't put it up here, but Doo Ho Choi did what he did to Nate Landwehr. Crazy work right there. Bryce Mitchell getting a win against Chrome Gracie, you know, whatever. But Bryce Mitchell's back. The robbery, the Alexander Volkov robbery, that hurt this card. Could have been ranked higher. Volkov won this fight, but that hurt this card. Another thing that also hurt this card was Romanov versus Ian Gary, dude. Shavkat Romanov versus Shavkat versus Ian Gary, dude. I'm struggling to even get the words out of me because, bro, I like that. The expectations for that fight were so high, and for how that fight to happen, it was horrible. But whatever. Ian Gary got aura out of it. Almost submitted Romanov in like the last round, dude. That was crazy. But you know, Romanov showed that he has some holes in his game, and if he comes into Belal, you know, into the championship fight against Belal injured, Belal has a chance of beating this guy. We need like a really healthy Romanov to actually, you know, beat Belal. And then you had Pantoja just destroying Kai Asakura, dude. Destroyed Kai Asakura. Too easy out there. But honestly, the prelims really did make this card really good. And the main event itself was pretty decent. But this card overall was just stacked. It was just the outcome was pretty predictable. And, you know, yeah. But this card was super duper good. On to the next card. At number 3, folks. This card right here, I didn't want to rank it so high, but honestly, it's UFC 299. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. It's UFC 299, the Miami card. I wanted to go to this one so bad. I have it ranked high because, dude, honestly, I think there was a point in the middle of the month after UFC 300 passed, or before UFC 300, that we were all saying, yo, this card is so good, I don't think it's gonna ever beat UFC 300, bro. I don't think it will, dude. And honestly, that's the reason why it's up here, dude. There was a lot of good fights, a lot of good finishes. You had Aswal Ambayev getting a decision win against CJ Vergara. I think that happened there. No, bro, what the heck is what? No, Aswal Ambayev knocked out CJ Vergara. I don't know what this is, but whatever. Or no, that's, yeah, that happened. I'm thinking about the other Soviet Union guy, Tamirov, my bad. But you had Robelis to Spain before getting cut, dude. He, you know, UFC debut knocking out Josh Parsons or whatever. You had Michael Vachinchek and Michael Pereira like going at it. Pereira getting a submission win. The prelims were good though. They're not good, but decent. You had Kyler Phillips getting a win before being fraud checked by Rob Font this year. Macy Barber making her way to the top of the flyweight division. Curtis Blades knocking out Jalton Almeida. Thank you, Curtis Blades. We love you for that. But the main card was really good, dude. You had Piotr Yan getting a win against Song Yadong, dude. You had Jack Della Maddalena with a broken arm, beating Gilbert Burns in the 3rd round. You had MVP schooling my boy, my favorite fighter, Kevin Holland, a little bit. Now MVP's fighting Sharamagomedov, which is crazy. You had Dustin Poirier fraud checking Benoit Saint Denis. Nasty work right there by Dustin Poirier. A lot of people, even me included, had Benoit Saint Denis beating Dustin Poirier. I don't know why. I just thought Saint Denis was good. He was the young up-and-comer, and I thought he was going to do it, but Dustin Poirier, baby. And then you had, obviously, Sean O'Malley getting his revenge on Marlon Vera, and then he schooled Marlon Vera in this fight, hit him with some crazy strikes. But I ranked this at 3. Could be ranked a little bit lower. I think it could be ranked at 4, being honest with you, but it was still a really good card. But on to number 2, UFC 308, man. This card right here, UFC 308. Dude, this could be ranked number 1, dude. But UFC 308, dude. This, like, you know, when they, well, everybody knew when they made this card was gonna be amazing, dude, and it showed out. There was a couple decisions in the beginning that were boring. Kenny Usuchuku gets the you know, the KO win against Chris Barnett, but whatever. That doesn't matter. Mateusz Rebecki versus Martin Oroblau, fight of the year contender, probably fight of the year. I remember just looking at this fight and being like, what is going on? These warriors, dude, are going crazy for us right now, dude. And Oroblau's eye, bro. You're talking about Colby Covington's eyelid getting cut. Oroblau couldn't even see through that eye in the 3rd round, dude, and they still let him fight. And they put up a war for us, dude. That fight right there was crazy. Yeah, Jeff Neal knocking out, not even knocking out, but Dos Anjos tears his ACL, bro. Like, we're not talking about that. Ibo Aslan knocking out Rafael Sierra. That was pretty cool to see. You had Shera Magomedov. I didn't even put it up here, but you had Shera Magomedov doing the double spinning back fist KO. That was crazy to see. Lerone Murphy versus Dan Ige was a really good fight. Magomed Ankalaev versus Alexander Rakic. It was an okay fight. Ankalaev, scary dude. Kazmat Chimaev, dude, breaking Robert Whittaker's chin was nuts to see, bro. Crazy. And the way that he just took Robert Whittaker to the ground, dude, you don't see that thing, you don't see that happen like that. And Chimaev is next for the belt. He's definitely next after the winner of Dricus du Plessis and Sean Strickland. And honestly, the craziest knockout of this year, the one that, well, not the craziest knockout, but, you know, one of the craziest knockouts. Ilia Topuria sleeping Max Holloway, the first guy to finish Max Holloway, dude. That was nuts. I remember screaming like a child when I saw that. That was nuts to see. This card was so good. Blessed. Can't wait for another Saudi Arabia pay-per-view, because if they're stacking it up like that, I don't care at what time or day it is, I'm watching it. But guys, for the number 1 ranked card of this year for 2024, it was obviously gonna be UFC 300, dude. UFC 300 from top to bottom was the best card of this year, dude. The fact that you had Cody Garbrandt and Deiveson Figueroa opening up the card is insane. King Green demolishing Jim Miller was nuts. Bro, the amount of fights that was on here, the amount of finishes on here, the amount of memes that were created on here, dude. You had the amount of moments that were created on here in this card, dude. You had literally, not only did we're gonna talk about it, Max Holloway, not only did he school Justin Gaethje, but in the final seconds, he literally said, you know what? I'm putting one of the best performances I had on the line to get the craziest knockout. Probably the one moment that we will all remember for our lives seeing this card. And the one moment that UFC will probably rewind in our heads every single time. That fight right there was insane. One of the best performances this year for Max Holloway. Not only that, dude, you had Renato Moicano beating Jalen Turner. That was a crazy one. Diego Lopez knocking out Youssef. Kayla Harrison making her UFC debut, submitting Holly Holmes. Jiri Prochazka against Rakic. Performance bonus of the night for Jiri Prochazka, dude. That was a crazy fight, dude. Exciting one to see. We don't talk about Bull Nichols. If you want to know why, go watch my Bo Nichols video. But you had Charles Oliveira, Arman Tsarukyan. Crazy fight right there. Arman Tsarukyan showing why he's the #1 contender. We're not even going to talk about Zhang Wei Li against Yang. And when Zhang Wei Li starts fighting twice a year and making her fights more exciting, we'll talk about her. But dude, Alex Pereira doing this to Jamal Hill after he knocked him out, after he got cup checked and told Herb Dean Chama and knocked this dude out. Come on, bro. This gotta be the card of the year, dude. It has to be. But yeah, guys. That's it. That's it for this video, bro. I'm Gene Epps MMA. Like and subscribe. I got more videos coming up for y'all.